Ultimately, the moral of ABC is not especially profound. Jean Bouen Yang's three storylines converge to deliver the message of be who you are, resist the urge to assimilate, be proud of your heritage, and stop trying to deny it. What makes this such an enjoyable and effective story for many readers is the way Yang tells it, using three competing narratives that all wind up converging in exciting and unexpected ways. The stories are deceptively simple, but minor details later take on greater significance in clever ways. How do you feel about this storytelling technique? Do you find it to be effective or just confusing?
So we know that there are two side storylines and one main storyline. The two side storylines being the Chinky storyline and the second one being the Monkey King. And really what both of those did is both of those had their own individual message, but they were both messages that made up the main storyline. So I think that by the author using those secondary storylines, he made the message of the main storyline a lot more profound. And when it came converging all at the end, it created one concrete big message.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I thought it was the way they told the storyline was great because it gave you connections and foreshadowing to the end, which just made the end make more sense. And if they didn't have those two other, or maybe took one storyline out, just the end wouldn't be the same and it wouldn't make sense at all. So, and I put on like page 76 where the Monkey Kid thought he was better than he actually was when he first met like the whatever god when he peed on his hand. Kind of like foreshadowed to the end where he was not as better and he was on a rock and then he had to do a whole journey, which was good to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought it was really effective because like as you're reading, especially towards like the end of the book, you kind of get like those like aha like realizations. Like on page 99, when Wei Chen knows like the sex of the monkey and like the monkey's like attracted to him, like it didn't make any sense when originally reading it. But then when we find out that that he really is a monkey, then it kind of like all comes together. And there was like a lot of those instances where things that didn't make sense originally started to come together towards the end.
I also thought it was a little confusing to begin with when you had the three different stories, and it was kind of, I don't know, it was just a little confusing for me. But then in the end, when things started to click and come together, it just all made sense, and I thought it was really effective towards the end.
I didn't think it was confusing right until the end when it like all came together. And then I kind of had to like step back and look at the look at the characters and the different chapters, and then it made sense.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was just really trying to comprehend what was happening at the end versus when they were all just split up into three stories. Yeah, but I liked it, and yeah, it just got confusing at the end. Like on page 212 when Danny punched off Chinky's head, that was when the confusingness started for me. So.
Yeah, I don't know if that. I also liked how these three storylines like were a little bit confusing at the very end, especially and kind of at the beginning too, because we understood Jen Wang's storyline, the Monkey King, and then when they added Chinky storyline, it was kind of like a curveball. We just didn't expect where it was going. We thought it was just going to be like something that was like every once in a while. They kind of poked fun at the stereotypes, but then eventually turned into a whole storyline and merged with the other ones, and I think that was a real effective way to turn your mind around on that.
Kind of going back to what you said, I also liked how there were like those little things that as you were reading like weren't important, but then like you get to the end and like you look back at like those little things and realize that they like were part of like a much bigger picture. Like on page 217, like we learn about like how Wei Chen had the monkey transformer, and it was like supposed to like be a reminder to him of like where he came from and whatever. But like when we first met him, he was like, "Oh, it's just a gift from my dad," and like that's just like kind of normal, and like you don't think twice about it. But I think like once you realize those things and you go back and look at it, it makes the story like more interesting.
Yeah. I think that the little details like that are what really made the book, because I don't know how many of you guys read the back cover, but the back cover pretty solidly leads you towards knowledge that everything converges together. So in that sense, it's not a surprise that they all do converge, but it's the tiny little details like the toy that really end up making the story more interesting, because reached the end, like you knew that a convergence had to come, but then you can go back and see little tiny details that the author put in there just to like subtly attract you to the storyline and keep you interested.
Not only did all these like clues in all three different storylines make the book more interesting, but it also made you analyze the book more and really think about what was going on and what happened in the last storyline, which helped you just understand the book in a whole different sense, and not just reading it with just like a closed mind and just like it going into your brain and then just like going out. Like some of us, I know I read like that. It just goes in. I don't really think about it. It's just like it's there.
Yeah, going back to like what Magdalena was talking about, kind of like not thinking about the book, but then going back to it. On page 27, like when he first gets the transformer, he says like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he's like, I want to be a transformer. And then you kind of see that like he does transform himself to like being Danny, but then he's able to transform back into like himself and finding his true identity. So I thought that was like a really clever reference that the author put in there.
If anybody thinks that this story is like really confusing, I can definitely see why. It was a pretty linear story. Like, I mean, all three were pretty linear until page like 212 and 214. And just from that point on, everything just becomes so heavily symbolic, and it just starts making less and less sense in the sense of like an actual story. But I'm not sure how I feel about the author transforming like a concrete story into a complete symbol.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it would have just been easier for me to understand if he just kept three individual stories with three different endings.
I feel like part of it is like you guys saying, whoever said it was confusing the end. I feel like it's because, you know, the author combined all three stories into like just a few panels and then continued like for a few pages, and then it like got back to the original story or kind of changed into one of the main stories.
I think for me, what really confused me was like the combination of like Chinese mysticism and a variety of different deities kind of into the like Zaiotsu like narrative where there's like one all-powerful. For me, that really kind of convoluted the story behind the Monkey King. And so then like once we hit the end where the Monkey King reveals himself, it kind of made more sense then. But I just kind of wish that there'd been a little bit more information on like the Monkey King and the other deities in the book, because to me that was the most confusing part, was trying to figure out how everybody fit into that narrative at the beginning.
Yeah, I agree with that. I said telling three stories at the same time kind of shows that like how three of them got like, not three of them, two people got discriminated. And the monkey part is kind of confusing, but at the end, like page like 212 and then 222, I don't think that it was really confusing, like how they connected, how like it showed life lesson. I don't think it was really confusing.
I think for me, the part that was the most confusing was like Jin's transformation like to Danny, like how did no one like notice that suddenly like he's like not Chinese anymore, and like his parents, like I don't really understand like what happened to them, like were they like, did they stay Chinese the whole time and just like not notice that suddenly they had like a white son, or like
I thought it was all in his head.
Yeah,
like,
I think
like
that's
his
what
whole
he.
entire,
I
like,
think
that's
he
how
observed himself as
yeah.
Danny.
He perceived himself as Danny, but like he was actually Jen the entire time.
Like Mr. Fairy.
so then did he like
himself.
so then did he like
was, like,
actually change schools
Yeah.
as Jin?
I think.
Yeah.
I think
he would have had
after.
to change schools, then he would have had like issues with, like with Shinki arriving, he would have had issues, and that's why he would have had to transfer each time.
That's why we didn't see Wei Chen when he was Danny.
Well, then going off of that, does Chinky actually look like that? Because I mean,
Wait,
most
is
people
Chinky,
would
like,
be
real
like,
then?
that's.
Danny, wait, if Danny was in his head,
He was the Monkey King all
Yeah.
along.
yeah, but like was
I
he
think
really
he
like
was
real, or like was he also in his head?
No, it was real.
Yeah, I think it was real.
It was just all like from like just like it's not like a dream, but it seems like you know how I think about it, it's like it seems more or less just a mindset of his and not like a hallucination more or less.
Yeah.
Not like a concrete like thing.
Transformation.
Did anyone think that Danny was just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Steve was until
Wait,
the
Danny's
end.
not a whole nother kid.
Well, like,
I think
Oh,
cause like he was.
I'm getting more
Oh,
confused.
But like
Oh
he
yeah.
changed.
I think on page 87 where you first see like we're introduced to Amelia on page 87 when he was in 8th grade, and I think that moment there was a lot of like clicks going off because they're like Amelia and Melanie are the same person. So there's the thing that Danny and Jin Wang are just gonna be the same person. That's when it starts. But
They were
it
actually
really
the
is.
same person.
Well, I think it's just like they're supposed to be the same person, like in his mind. Like it's the same like girl he's into and stuff like that.
I have a question.
He's got a
kinda-
mic.
Less than 2 minutes, you guys.
Yeah, I got a quick question. So when Danny was at the first came to the house and was talking to like Danny's like not girlfriend, but like the girl
Boo
he was
thing.
tutoring with, whatever. Was that really Jin, or was that first Danny?
I think that was Jin.
When he was like Hello America,
Oh.
when he came in with like the chopstick suitcases, was that Danny like in the flesh, or is that like
I think that
Jin?
I think
I
as
feel like
Danny?
I feel like this
I think
is a
it's
question
Jin.
we'd have to like actually ask about
Danny's
because
just
the book
what-
is not gonna give us enough
Danny
details
is not
to
gonna
solve
give-
that question.
I think there's a little bit of time travel going on. I think we see
Let's have
not
Harry
sci-fi
snipe
book,
the
no.
not
author.
time travel, just like we see parts of Jin's life, and then we like skip forward. to
I get that part. I'm just wondering if Danny's Danny or Danny's Jin in the beginning before he transforms.
In the beginning, I think it was always Jin, and then like in his mind, he was Danny.
Like other
But
people,
I don't
other
know.
people perceived him as Danny though, so the idea is.
Yeah.
I think other people. I think
Well,
other
because
people.
he
I
actually
think
saw it.
Jin called himself Danny, and then he told other people to
But
call him Danny
Danny,
too.
yeah.
Like
But
Mr.
he
Perry
wanted
talked
to
about
be-
that one kid he had in class where
So-
he told them to call him this one name, not his actual name.
So like he actually went by Danny, but
Yeah.
he was still Chinese.
That's what
Yeah.
I thought, but I don't know.
But so then the two girls, are they like actually the same person
Maybe.
or two different girls?
Alright,
That
well,
he thinks
that's
he
time,
It's another-
so.
I don't know.
Make that question 11 whether Danny's